there is no way that one of these large Middle Eastern countries, whether it's Saudi Arabia or, beyond, wants an influx of Caucasian Americans or Brits who refuse to assimilate and want to change culture there. A bunch of feminists from the Upper West Side moving to Saudi is not something they desire, and they don't need to desire it. Who could blame them? They have their own culture, their own ways, and that's fine for them. That's one of the things Trump understands. He doesn't need to change everybody else's culture. There are opportunities to work with people economically, understanding they're different than we are.
Yep.
But this wasn't the approach. I mean, I remember when I was on Fox News back around 2010, 2015, that whole time frame, what the biggest story in the world was, in particular in Germany, Angela Merkel opening up the German borders, in particular to Syrian refugees. And the UK was doing it too, all in the name of tolerance. And now here we are 15 years later, and the cultures have fundamentally changed. These people did not assimilate.
Yep. Tolerance and historic guilt. The German example is a very good one. And obviously historic guilt is rife within Germany, which is one of the reasons they did that. You mentioned the Upper West Side. I lived in New York for a few years. I saw this. And the trend line that you have seen on the left is so bizarre. If you actually looked at this, it could be a Babylon Bee article, in that you have this bizarre combination now of far left, loony, progressive identity politics warriors and leftist and regressive conservative Muslims. And it is so obviously an incompatible combination with the one thread that binds them together, which is a desire to tear down Western civilization. Now, I don't think that thread is enough to hold that coalition together in the long term, but that is what is happening on the left. That is what is behind the rise of people like Mamdani. That is what is behind the rise of the far left in the UK as well. It is an incompatible coalition, with the one exception that the goal is to tear down what we have built and cherished over thousands of years, and then what the US progressed and built upon from 1776.
And to your point, there are definitely Muslims here and in the UK who have assimilated and just want to live an American life. And that's great. Nobody has any problem with them. It's those who want to Islamicize their new countries to whom we object and whom we must fight, because we don't want to Islamicize the United States of America, nor do you want to Islamicize the UK. Because as Charlie was saying in a special we did, I was running clips of him 2 Sundays ago, Islam is not compatible with Western values. It cannot become the majority. We do not want that to become the dominant cultural or religious strain in our country or yours, for really good reasons, some of which you hit on in your monologue.
Yeah. What do you put it down to, Megyn? Because again, for me, and I think for you and for your audience, most sensible people, it is very obvious that in Islamic culture, particularly fundamentalist Islamic cultures, but I would even argue with moderate Muslims, it is obvious that women are second-class citizens.
Yep.
It is obvious that minority groups are treated appallingly, and yet the very same people who will march out on the streets with rainbow flags in saying we need to protect these oppressed groups are also willing to turn a blind eye. And I find it, frankly, hypocritical, but also just a bit, I remain confused by it. What do you put it down to?
I mean, you mean the difference between those who want to assimilate and those who don't?
No, I mean, how can you? Let's think about your typical purple-haired lefty loony on campus who will argue for trans rights, but at the same time they will also turn a blind eye to the obvious cultural problems at the fringe of Islamic culture, and I would dare say at the mainstream of Islamic culture in many of these countries. That cognitive dissonance that is there, what do you put that down to? How can they turn that blind eye?
They're ruled by that oppression narrative, and it starts, there's nothing greater, not sexuality, not gender identity, than skin color. That is the be-all, end-all for many of these people. And brown and black people must be elevated above whites no matter what, because that's the ultimate oppression scale. And if that means that as a gay person you have to get thrown off the top of a building in Palestine because you're a white gay, so be it. That's really how their thinking goes. It makes no sense. It's really radical, But there's no other conclusion because we've seen the clashes in the streets, where the people are holding up like gays for Hamas. And then they get shouted down by Muslims who are like, "What? Get out! You're not part of our coalition. We're not in favor of gays. We don't believe in this lifestyle." And you see the light bulb go off. But what do you mean? But I support you. I'm against Israel. I don't like Jews, just like you. And you see these more radical Muslims being like, "You are not part of our coalition, nor do we want you to be." And even then, these people would get out there because there's social cachet in saying that you're anti-Israel, you're pro-Hamas, or you're somehow for these oppressed Muslims in these other countries. Most of the Middle East is very rich. They're not oppressed. They don't need our help.
Yeah. But this is such a good point as well. And that is so much of this comes back to status. Back in the 80s or 90s, the way that you would demonstrate status would be, the Ferrari, the big house, trophy wife with the big boobs. That is how you demonstrated high society status. And now, Rob Henderson's been wonderful on this, it is that sort of luxury beliefs. But the thing which I am encouraged by, and I think this has been accelerated in the US with Trump, but I think it's happening in the UK now as well, is people are now just pushing back and saying, you know what, call me a racist. You know what, call me a bigot. I don't care anymore. Call me a Nazi, call me far right. The words have lost all meaning. And if you're going to call me a racist or far right, and that's the price that I have to pay to protect my own culture, to protect women and children who are being sexually assaulted at increasing rates in the United Kingdom today, I'm very happy to be called a racist in order to stop that from happening. And we can get to this, but the importation of crime, and particularly sexual crime in the UK over the last 20 odd years, has been absolutely terrifying. And you and I both know, as well as the audience, there is only one major variable that has happened in the last 20 years that would mean that you would get that spike in sexual assault and sexual violence in places like London.
Yeah, especially in the UK. Here, there's another variable, which is we went completely soft on crime after George Floyd and installed soft on crime DAs and soft on crime police departments and defunded cops and so on. But yes, I know we've been watching the rape crisis in the UK and largely perpetrated by these Muslim immigrants, which you're not allowed to say, but it's true. So too bad. I'm on the side of the women and the girls getting raped. I don't really give a shit about offending the rapists. But yeah, revolving door when it comes to the treatment of those guys. Buy gold and get free silver. That's right. For every $5,000 purchased from Birch Gold Group this month in advance of Veterans Day, they will send you a free patriotic silver round that commemorates the Gadsden and American flags. Look, gold is up over 40% since the beginning of this year, and Birch Gold can help you own it by converting an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Plus, they will send you free silver, honoring our veterans on qualifying purchases. And if you're current or former military, Birch Gold has a special offer just for you. They are waiving custodial fees for the first year on investments of any amount. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider diversifying your savings into gold. Text MK to the number 989898 for a free info kit and to claim your eligibility for free silver with qualifying purchases before the end of the month. Again, text MK to the number 989898. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.